Hello and welcome to this episode of Pause with Nandini on NRI Affairs. I am joining from Mianjin, the unceded lands of the Yagera and Turrbal people, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. It gives me great pleasure today, which is Teachers' Day, to welcome Gayatri Nair Lobo to our show, who is with Educate Girls. And we're going to hear a lot about their work and something very exciting that has happened very recently. But first, let me welcome you.
Thank you so much, Nandini. It's lovely to be here.
Absolutely. And Gayatri is based in Bombay, in
That's
India,
right.
and her work spans a lot of different states in India. And primarily, what the organization is, it's a non-profit which mobilizes rural and remote communities in India to advance girls' education. I let Gayatri tell us a little bit more about that and her role with the work.
Sure. Thanks, Nandini. So I run an NGO called Educate Girls, as you mentioned. Educate Girls is essentially trying to fight whatever barriers come in the way of girls getting a good education. Now, these could be poverty, these could be patriarchy, these could just be lack of documentation. But being able to, over the last 18 years, we've been able to mobilize and bring to back to school over 2 million girls. And it's shocking that in 2025, this is still an issue, but it is. And therefore, we have our work cut out for us. We hope to reach 10 million girls in the next 10 years.
That's just, these numbers are unbelievable, honestly. And let's hear about the fabulous award that your organization got.
Yes, so it's very, very exciting. But Educate Girls has received the Ramon Magsaysay Award, the first Indian organization to win it, because it's normally individuals. But I think what makes it even more special for us being, receiving it as an organization is that it belongs to every single person who's been a part of it. So we've been having lots of celebrations and lots of just outpouring of love because everyone feels a part of it, which is very, very, yeah, I'm in the right place at the right time.
This is just beautiful. So the organization was founded by Safina Hussain in
Yes,
2007.
that's right.
It's been around for a while. And tell me about, so the organization is an NGO. It functions through a vast network of volunteers.
That's
And
right.
I've read a little bit about the two main programs
I'll
that
talk to you
you
about
have.
them.
If you
Yeah,
could give us a little bit more information on how that whole thing works, because a lot of
sure.
times the way NGOs function can be quite like obscure to everybody else. But obviously, to do what you do, it's a vast sort of network, as I said, of many people working across various points of entry into this work.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with the two models that we
Yes.
follow at the organization, and the whole role of volunteers, etc., will flow from that. So the first is what we call Vidya. Under Vidya, we work within school systems, within the government school systems, to ensure that girls who are not accessing school today are brought to school and they're learning and thriving there. And how we do that, that's where the volunteers come in. So, Nandini, if you and I go into a school or go into a community and talk to parents and say, you should send your kids to school, of course, Indians, we're very nice at heart and everybody very welcoming, but they're not going to listen to us. Like, who are these outsiders coming in and telling us what we should be doing with our girls, right? You'll get your cup of chai and all of that, and then you'll be asked to leave, very politely asked to leave.
Hmm.
Our volunteers are educated people from within the village that we're working in. So they are people who are known to them, perhaps, maybe not, but at least there's some connection that they have with them, some relatability with them. They also play the role of a role model very often, right? So
Mhm.
in a village, if a volunteer goes to a particular house, realizes there's a 10-year-old girl, they're not going to school, they can ask why. You and I will be like sidestepping, or
Yeah.
if we ask you directly, we'll be just asked to leave. But they can
Yes.
ask why, they can ask what's stopping their daughter from going to school. Maybe she was in school and she dropped out because she just wasn't learning anything in school. And now
Hmm.
she's siblings and she has to take care of them.
Yes.
Um, so the volunteer can then suggest alternatives. The volunteer can then suggest what that little girl is missing out on by not being in school. Sometimes it's fear. They can allay some of those fears. They bring in others from the community. So they know who the influencers in that village are. Right. So whether it's a religious leader or it's a elected leader or it's a school teacher, they'll bring them in and they will then talk to the parents and say, look, you're worried that your daughter will find some boy and run off. Let's talk to the school teacher and see if that actually happens or if it's just a fear in your head. Or
Mm,
you're worried about how this little girl is going to walk to school 20 minutes away all alone. Here are six other girls who are going to be going from your basti, right? Or your molla. So they try and identify what those are. They also then go into what documentations are required. Aadhaar card they may not have applied. So they do a whole lot of things to make sure that girl goes to school. In the school, we run a remedial learning camp where 6 hours in a week, our volunteers or field coordinators, depending on the village, take the kids through foundational learning and literacy classes so that they can build their skills. So even if
mm,
I'm 10 years old, I'm enrolled in grade 4, I'm not lost in class because I've not done grade 1, 2, 3. Because with this remedial, correct.
mm,
With
mm.
these 2 hours, which is fun and games, and like, you remember when we were kids, we played dog and the bone. So they might
Yes.
do dog and the bone, but with maths. So I'm solving something. Oh, that's my number. I need to go run in there and get the bone. Right. So it's a lot of fun ways of teaching. Sometimes you find other teachers watching and they also want to start doing things like that in their classroom, which is great. But and then the third thing we do in the school is we work with the school management committees. So a lot of involve the parents in how the school is functioning, what the infrastructure of the school is, what do your girls have access to a separate toilet? Is there water in that toilet?
Oh,
So we
interesting.
build out a chart, which you actually don't need to be educated to be able to read that chart because we've made it pictorially with the right colors to show progress, etc. So that parents can feel like they can ask those questions. Otherwise, they're there on paper. They might show up for a meeting because they have to, but they're not actually participating in the discussion. Now they can. So you're giving them that agency as well. And I'll just say
So,
one last thing on Vidya, sorry, before you go to your question. For older girls, we also do some life skills training because
oh,
again, they have no access to knowing what's happening in the world and how it affects them.
yes, no, just here I'm thinking of like the barriers, right? And how your volunteers would be equipped to deal with
Yeah.
those barriers. Is there like training for them that because you said
Yes.
there's also the volunteers are looked after by a caseworker or someone at that level, or
So we have what we call a field coordinator. So one field coordinator would work with about 10 to 15 volunteers,
oh,
depending on how widespread the villages are. The volunteers go through a rigorous induction. We almost unsell the role to them.
mm,
Because you don't want someone doing it because they think it's easy. It's not. It's
not
going
it.
door to door and going back 6, 7 times, arranging all these things in the village to create that buzz, identifying the right people, etc. And then also teaching in the school sometimes, right? Depending on their ability to do so. So it's not easy, but we do provide them with a lot of training, a lot of resources they can use in their conversations. We have a field coordinator who can then help them. They also visit homes with them sometimes to help them get more accustomed and comfortable having these tough conversations. So that there's a lot of support given to them for the role. We also then invest in their career development.
Mm,
We help them do these aptitude tests. We open their eyes to what else they can do. Some of them are studying still while they're doing this, so they're also thinking about what next after I finish my graduation. So there's a lot of that kind of input that goes in. They do online programs. We sometimes will even recognize them by nominating them for global awards for volunteering. Someone who's gone above and beyond. So and
sure.
then to keep that community quite nicely knit so that they are excited about being it and they're also benefiting from it. They
This is
all
what,
follow
yeah.
this, sorry, they all follow this slogan, which is really what stands for what they do, which is I'm translating from Hindi, but it's my village, my problem, I'm the solution.
This is really great because it has, this is why I was wondering, like, how the volunteers stay engaged and
Yeah.
keeps them motivated. So you've answered that. And because it is a sort of symbiotic relationship
Yes.
between them, the community, and your organization. Okay, so now tell me about the other program
The
that,
second.
yes.
Sorry, I have to say one last thing. Our volunteers are not paid one dime. Right? They're doing this because they deeply care about the issue. And they also get the opportunity to grow as professionals, which is something they wouldn't have access in their villages otherwise. Sorry. So the second program is what we call Pragati.
Yes.
Pragati is for older girls. So between the age of 15 to 29, where you're out of the purview of the right to education, but you've dropped out of school and now you have no access to further education. So what we're working in a few states where we say, look, we'll help you pass your exam, your 10th and your 12th through the open school system.
Okay.
So the open school, it's kind of like distance learning, but it's much more for the more widespread. Like typically you'd think of a distance learning of somebody who's just failed the 10th and they want to redo it, so they have to do it remotely. This is what we are pushing for, is to make it really accessible across the villages, have multiple exam centers where people can go and do their exams, and really look at it from a gender lens, right? So, what are the barriers to a girl finishing her education? One large one is money. So
Oh,
for example, in Rajasthan, we work with the Women and Child Development Ministry, and they have given scholarships for any woman who wants to do this exam. So it's completely free. The second is distance to the exam center. So we try and push for more exam centers in a district so they
mm,
can just go there and do the exam and come back. Because again, they don't have money for travel. They don't have the ability to spend the like entire, week and a half outside, because that's how long the exams take. And the third is like from a government point of view, they don't have teachers who can work across every village, right? So what we've done is we've taken the government curriculum and converted it into a self-learning pedagogy. And
ah,
we made it really simple in a way that somebody who's not studied for the last, I don't know, 7 years, 10 years, they can they get all the background information that's needed, and then they can understand what the text says, how. So it'll have the text in a simplified way. It'll say, okay, here is the new vocabulary you've learned through this chapter. Here are typical questions you could be asked based on this, which are not rote, because rote you'll know by just reading up, but the more application based questions. So
right.
you're actually helping them think,
So
which honestly our own education didn't give us, right?
I know. We were rote learners for a long time, no, with a lot of the subjects.
Yeah.
What does this award mean for the organization?
I think one, it's a recognition, and it kind of puts a spotlight on girls' education, and that there are solutions. There are solutions that work. There are solutions that work at scale. And I think what we now do with it is going to really determine the future of not just educate girls, but girls' education, right? Bringing more partners to run this model, perhaps somebody in you know, Africa once, or somebody in Malawi actually reached out to us saying, can you show us how you've looked at your data, and we use some predictive analysis to see where we should work. So can you help us think about how we do that for us? Somebody from Tanzania reached out recently saying, look, you talked about life skills training. What are you doing? Is there something we can borrow? And we were like, here's our curriculum, take it. Like you can run it, contextualize it, and go with it, right? So just taking bits and pieces of the model across the country and across globally, wherever you see there are girls out of education. I think there's a UNICEF report that said 122 million girls don't have access to education. And how do
Wow.
you change that?
Yeah.
Without us having to be everywhere, because we are not like I mean, we have aspirations, but we're also realistic. But how
Yes.
to take aspects of the model that are relevant in different contexts and just give it to them to do.
This is really, I mean, it's as one of the reasons why when I read this, I instantly wanted to talk to you is because, staying outside India sometimes, obviously the news is filtered through whatever media is coming across, and generally we hear about the problems, right? And of course there are enormous problems in various
Yeah.
aspects, but when you read of something that is sort of hopeful and that is actually bringing change in society, the way that we sort of think about theoretically, and you're actually doing it on the ground, I think that's a story to be told. And I was looking at some of the data, like for instance, female literacy rates for ages 7 and above stand at 65% compared to 80% for men. So there is a gap, there is a
Yeah,
huge gap, right?
that's good. Yeah.
And I wonder, of course, the gap is, like you said, there's patriarchy, there's all of that. I wonder if you also see, by what you're doing, are you seeing that gap like substantially reduce in the areas that you're working
Yeah,
in? Because I imagine all of this work that you're doing, the data that you're gathering from it is so valuable.
absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that process?
So I'll tell you two things. One is absolutely, and I think the if you look at the school enrollment rates for primary school, that's really close to 100% now. Right. And of course, that's a country average, and therefore we work in the states where there's still a gap.
Big gaps.
But we can see that change. What we need to focus on now is for secondary schools and for older girls, like I said, who've dropped out, as we start closing the gap on elementary education. Um, I think it's for us, like when we started the Vidya program 2007 and like 18 years ago, the gap was much wider. So in Pali district, for example, where we started working in, we've actually exited the district because in the villages that we work in, you would hardly find girls out of school. And so we do this big event, like a community handover. And we said, look, we've solved most of the problem. Now you as a
Carry.
community need to solve the rest, and you need to make sure these girls stay in school. So you celebrate it, you celebrate that success, and then give the responsibility there. The Team Balika volunteers still exist in those villages. So if there is an issue, they know they can call us. So far, we've not got a call. But Pali, if you look at other gender indicators, they when we started, we were started there because we were told their Pali district numbers are much worse than the state average. Now,
Mm.
across gender indicators, Pali is performing better than the state average.
Wow, that's
Now,
just
I'm not saying that, hey, educate girls has solved this and we are so awesome, but
I'm saying that.
sure, I'm sure we've contributed to it in some way. Of course, the
Yeah.
government has paid a lot of attention. Other nonprofits working in the district have, but all of us together have made something amazing happen. So, of the villages that we started working in, we have exited about 8,000 villages because the numbers have gotten so much better. So, 100% we can see improvement, and largely in Rajasthan and MP, where we worked longest. We want to now see that in Bihar and UP, and we already started seeing trends of that happening.
I find that was so fascinating because this idea that when you think of an NGO and you think of ongoing work and the
Yeah,
fact that it's a continuum and it never ends, but you win
yeah,
and end, and then they carry on. That's such
correct.
a powerful message, right? The other
You
thing
know,
that I found,
direct, sorry.
sorry?
No, I was saying our director of operations, he says, we celebrate when we're out of business.
Amazing. That's amazing. One of the other things that really caught my eye is that this is not from your information that I have, but this is just some other reports that I saw about the broader social and economic impacts of
Yes.
girls being educated. And beyond education, it reduces child marriage, for instance. It has
Yeah,
an impact on sex ratios. It has an impact on women then educating their own girls.
absolutely.
So, can you
So,
talk to me about some
yeah,
of those bigger impacts?
you know, they often say that you educate a boy, you educate one person. When you educate a girl, you educate an entire family. So I think women are 2 times more likely to educate their children to at least her level, if not higher, if she's educated. The impact on child marriage, a lot of times because they've dropped out of school and they're sitting at home, iska to shadi karwa do. Right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
the immediate thing. Like why before she falls into trouble, we should get her married off, which is why that happens. Um, just in terms of like immunization, asking questions to doctors, it's just so much agency that is given to women because she's educated. And I think
Mm.
all of these then have an implication on maternal mortality rates, infant mortality rates, just by educating a woman. So it's like the ROI as a, when you talk in financial terms, is massive.
What are some of the like really entrenched barriers that you face in rural communities? Again, I mean, I don't want to stereotype
Yeah.
that it's just one kind of
Yeah.
rural community, but some of the highlights. And the second, maybe related question is that do you see caste playing a role in differences between different communities and how they think about education and how they have or do not have access? Because you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we get these kind of really disturbing reports even now of so-called, you know, caste disadvantaged children being made to sit outside classrooms, or they can't eat with everybody else, or you know, so all of those
Yeah.
discriminatory things, do you see an impact of that? And is there in the way that you train your volunteers, is there a consciousness of the fact that caste continues to dominate certain ways in which people function within society?
Yeah. So one of the things is that because we're working in the most backward villages in the district, most of them are already either scheduled castes or scheduled tribes, largely scheduled tribes. Um, so there isn't a distinction of sorts that we see. They're all being deprived of
Or
any,
access?
any access, right? So that's something that we're trying to fight. We don't get any resistance from the bureaucracy side. So, for example, a lot of them are not attached to social protection schemes. So then
They're
we'd have
not.
them. They just don't, they're not aware. Or they'll
Mm,
be attached to one, but they don't know they actually have access to 12 others. So our
yes.
teams have to start working with them on that.
Mm,
Uh, so it's there, it's less patriarchy. It's more that they themselves are not educated, they don't know,
so,
and it's poverty. So a lot of them are migrants. So they're not smallholder farmers. They work on a smallholder farmer's farm or another farmer's farm, potentially sometimes in another state altogether. In which case their kids go with them and therefore are never enrolled in school.
mm,
So we don't see in classrooms any distinction because maybe it's because all of them are from the same caste. I don't know, but we don't
oh,
see. We see them all sitting together. With the older girls, sometimes you might see some issues. So in the way we work is we have camps at a village level
mm,
where all the girls come together and they study together. We have a prayer or a facilitator who is not teaching but helping them learn.
mm,
Sometimes the prayer will say, like let's like I remember one case where the prayer said the center that they work in the camp that they had, that space was used for something else. So she said, let's study in my house. And the others in the village were like, you had ST people coming to your house. So then she started doing it outside the house, but she's like, they have to learn. Right?
yeah,
I don't want my parents to be put under any
yes,
ban or
yes,
any issue. So let me do it, but let me do it in a different way. So the girls still got that access. So patriarchy, we talked about. The poverty is a big one. Like
mm,
this lot of migrant workers, a lot of daily wage workers, right? So if I might have an Aadhaar card and my husband will have one, but I don't have one for my daughters because I've not had the time or the ability to go and register because it's an entire day of lost wages, which
yes,
means someone who was hungry, right? Because they literally live hand to mouth. So we also as a team and our team Balika volunteers, they all try to figure out how to make it so easy for them that that doesn't become a barrier. But sometimes it's out of your control. You go to register, you have all the documents in place because that's been verified by the volunteer. And they say, aaj system down hai, ab kal aa jaiye. Who's going to take care of the next day's meals then? So those are real barriers. Sometimes it takes an entire year because of this to get their documents, which means their daughter's missed 1 year of school. So she has to catch up through the remedial education. So yes, there's patriarchy, and that's something we're fighting. There's also all of this, right? There's this fear of safety.
mm,
After fifth grade, the next school for eighth grade is 3 kilometers away. I'm not sure my daughter can go there. Which is also one layer of patriarchy in there, but it's also a genuine fear, right?
Yes,
So,
yes, of course, of course. You know, when I was in Bombay, there was this small organization called the Dirty Wall Project, and
okay.
it was in Sakinaka. And what they used to do is basically, again, like try and improve the lives of the community that lived there, whether it was finding like opportunities for work for the mothers, making sure the children stay in school. And one
Yeah.
of the biggest findings there was that food security is tied so intrinsically with an ability to stay in school. So what we
Yeah.
almost started, because it was just one neighborhood, and
Sure.
what the way that they structured it was that if you're going to support a child going to school, as part of that donation or support is also going to be some amount of like essential groceries for that home for that month,
Nice.
so they can
Yeah.
eat. So therefore they do not use that child's time to earn, even
Nice.
if it's begging on the street, because they can at least eat. And
That's
it was
amazing.
a
Yeah.
profound lesson that I learned there, that it's not enough to say, here you go, here are your school fees, or this here,
Yeah.
take you to school. But if the family is hungry, there's no way that a child is going to be allowed to just go to school.
Correct. You can't think of long-term benefits when your
Correct.
stomach is empty.
Is empty. So this brings me to another question, is that obviously girls' education doesn't operate in a silo, right? As much as you would like to extract it from every other problem and
Yeah.
just teach the girls, are there ways in which you collaborate with other organizations that are working around food security, or that are working around employment, or about
Yeah.
generally improving the lives of people in rural or underserved areas?
Yeah. Yes, in a sense, but a lot of the NGOs don't work in really remote areas, right? So, because food security is an issue everywhere, but girls' education is now become much more about, for us, it's the last girl, right? The last girl has to be in school.
Mhm.
So then you start going to smaller and smaller villages, hamlets, and areas where there are government protection schemes. So there's the schools, they'll get their midday meals. The tribal department will have some other social schemes for them. So we try
Yeah.
and get them to access government schemes, because it's not always possible to find. You might have in the same district another NGO. And so
Yes.
we partner in the sense that there's a lot of thought on sharing, there's a lot of support to each other or their team members, all of that happens. There's one
Yes.
district now where we've just started working, but there are four of us who entered at the same time because of the donor there. This is in Balotra in Rajasthan. So I think
Okay.
there we work. So there's one NGO that works at the Anganwadi level. There's us, which is in school. There's somebody on skilling. There's somebody on digital literacy. So there are different areas we work in. But I think that whole group coming together will be quite nice. So we all met when it was launched, and I think there's going to be a lot of synergies where one girl is passed on to the next, and they can go through life like that.
That's really interesting. I wanted to ask you one question about support. Obviously,
Yeah.
your organization has, I saw, got some really heavy duty grants through its life journey, and you are supported. Being outside India, I know that there are a lot of like non-resident Indians who feel deeply connected and have
Yes.
great desire to give back. And one of those barriers tends to be knowing where to go, who to go
Yeah.
to, is the money going to be used in the best way
Is
for
it a credible organization? Yeah.
yes. And one of the things I saw, which was very interesting, is that your organization is even listed on the National Stock Exchange as a
That's right.
organization. So obviously that brings a certain amount of rigor in terms of transparency and all of
Yeah.
that. Is there a
Absolutely.
way for people outside to support your organization, and how?
Yeah, so we have FCRA, which allows us to get money from outside of India. Our website has a donation link where you can say whether you're in India or outside, and then it's actually fairly simple to donate to educate girls. We actually have a few donors in Australia as well. So
Wonderful.
I hope that this podcast will bring many more.
Yes, I
Our
hope so
award
too.
gives us the credibility, like you said, the National Stock Exchange listing our projects. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. And I
Is
think
there
like,
Sorry,
sorry.
question on that. Is there a way for a donor to, maybe it's not, to specify, like, for instance, if they are from Rajasthan and they feel
Yeah.
like they want to support a program in Rajasthan,
Yeah.
or even in Rajasthan, if someone's from Bhilwara, like where you do
Yeah.
programs, is there a way to sort of say that I want to support a program in this city or
Yeah,
in this
absolutely.
district?
Absolutely. So everybody who donates on the website will get an email from my team, a actual person, not a bot,
Okay.
who the conversation can continue with.
Yes.
Um, but even outside of that, like, they can write to us and ask questions, happy to answer, happy to share information, pictures from the field, whatever it is that they would like to feel connected with. And I think this idea of giving back to where you're from is such a strong idea. So yeah, happy to be able to make that happen. Of course, in the states we work in, we can't suddenly start working in an area which doesn't actually need the help.
Tell me what keeps you. I mean, obviously, this is so enriching the work you do, as it is challenging. Tell me what
Yeah.
keeps you going, and tell me what you hope for, in terms both of your personal growth. You're CEO of this organization. I don't know how much further there is to go from that, but what are your personal aspirations, and what is your hope for this organization?
I think my personal aspirations are very linked to the organization's success. Um, we have put this goal for ourselves of 10 million in the next 10 years. I think that's what keeps me very focused. But I think what motivates me is going and seeing the work. Those are my happiest days. Even if it means that I've seen something but I feel completely helpless and I come back. I've actually done this. I come back to the hotel room and sobbed my eyes out because I met a young girl, same age as my twins, and she'd never gone to school. And while of course the team was working on getting her enrolled, it was just I just could not wrap my head around it. And my only release was sobbing alone into my pillow. But that also motivates me, right? That makes me feel like I've just started this journey. I have to make it work. And anything that I don't do can result in someone not being in school. And that's not something I want to live with.
When you said that last girl, it just
Yeah.
is such a powerful image in my head, and it's just so, it's something to really aspire to. Like, one day there will be one last girl who was left out, who's going to
I know,
walk into
right?
her first classroom.
Can
And I
you imagine
feel
the
like, even as a
picture?
mother, as a woman, as just someone who cares about children and the next generation, that's such a powerful,
Yeah,
like, beacon of hope, and it can keep you so determined to continue on this journey. So thank you for all that you do. I wish you and your organization the very best. And hopefully we will be still talking when that last girl walks into her first school. Thank you.
absolutely. And thank you for calling me. Thank you for reaching out after so many years and giving me this platform to talk about Educate Girls.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's watching, please go to Educate Girls. Check out the website, super simple way to donate. And even if it's not about donation, it's just about keeping in touch with all the great work that's happening and feel
Yeah.
inspired by all the stuff that you're doing. Thank you.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes, please
I
do.
would say even if you're a youngster watching this and you don't know how to donate, haven't started that, come to India on your next holiday, visit a school, visit some of the work, make a reel, right? You guys are so good at that and put it out there into the universe. Somebody else will give.
Amazing, amazing. On that happy note, thank you again. And
Thank,
hopefully, lots of people will watch and lots of people will connect with you after this.
thank you, Nandini.
Bye then.